Everybody, welcome back to the Running Through It podcast. My name is Justin Horniger, and it's Tuesday on the week of nationals. So I want to give my thoughts on regionals, NCAA regionals this past week, my kind of takeaways, things to maybe look for, and give my top 5 predictions when it comes to NCAAs this weekend. Just running back a recap of regionals, not a whole lot in terms of like upsets outside of a few regions. Talk about the Midwest, talk about the Northeast. Northeast is something I wanted to focus on because obviously I made a video last week discussing how it was moved to the roads and the merits of that. We have another wrinkle thrown into it, and that turns out that a good portion of the athletes are running in Vaporflys, or running in other, I don't know, it's to hold off on that point. It's hard to regulate because one, you would never expect an NCAA race to be run on the roads. What's to say that if someone can afford a Vaporfly versus a regular racing flat, like who's to say that there is a huge difference there from one to the other? The fact they're racing on the roads already has such a huge variable. It's hard to look at the results and say, well, this team won or this person won because more athletes racing in Vaporflies versus what would have happened on the cross-country course, because that change is going to impact different runners differently anyway. There's two main variables there. However, it's hard to look at the upsets that were Cornell on the women's side and Harvard on both the men's and the women's side and think that, maybe there isn't something to be said there. Now, going back through the photos of the race, I don't think that that's it, because I don't think enough Harvard runners and enough Cornell runners ran Vaporflies compared to the rest of the field, because it was pretty rampant, especially at the top of the race. I mean, you kind of figure if you're on the cusp of making nationals, or if your team is in that place, like you want to make sure that your result is your result. So if Vaporflies are available to be worn, you're going to want to wear them. You're going to want to make sure that you get the result that you're supposed to get. So the Northeast, obviously, there are those shakeups then. So Harvard makes it out on the men's and women's side. Cornell makes it out on the women's side. Both teams were unranked, are receiving votes coming into the weekend, come out with the automatic qualifiers. It's pretty big. That's a pretty big upset. That's one of the bigger upsets I've seen in a while, until you get to the men's Midwest, which had Oklahoma State not make nationals for the first time in 16 years, ending their streak of making nationals on their home course nonetheless. And then you have Tulsa on the men's and women's side making it out. So not only do you have Oklahoma State being dropped out, not making nationals, and pretty historic. Not that everyone expected them to win the region or anything, but the fact that they are almost always there, especially for as long as I've been following the sport, they've been at nationals. Now they're not on their home course. It's a big upset. And then just looking at everything that Tulsa's done this year, obviously they had that huge upset at Honeycomb, and they've been doing well all year and have been underrated. Now to see what they have done at regionals and to see them finally put everything together, it's so sweet to watch. We'll see what they do at nationals. I don't have them in my top 5, but I mean, they're just turning it on at the right moment. And that's the name of the game. It's not being ranked high initially. It's not having the best, well, it's having the best athletes, but it's not having the best athletes on paper. It's knowing when to get the most out of your athletes, and knowing and teaching your athletes when to get the most out of themselves at the right time, at the right moment. Now, let's go into my top 5. So, going into nationals, I have kind of ranked who I think will finish top 5. Now, this is my thoughts as someone who commentates on running. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Obviously, cross country is fantastic because even at nationals, it's meant for the big stage. So the big name athletes are going to, you have your gamers, you have your people who are going to race well on the big stage, and you have your people who aren't going to race as well. I was definitely someone who did not race as well on the big stage, because I would often get in my head and just be incredibly anxious about it. Now, who's to say what happens? That's what makes nationals so fantastic, is that there are going to be these upsets, and not everything is going to go to plan. That's what makes cross country so great. So my top 5. So we'll start it on the women's side. So at number 5, I have Michigan State. Michigan State looks like a team that has kind of turned it on at the right time. They looked great at regionals. But then what you see from the top 5 on both sides really is that the West region is most likely the best region we've ever seen as far as the quality of the top four. Because next and fourth, I have Washington. So Washington's been there pretty much all year in the top five. No change from pre-Nets to now. They were second behind Stanford as Stanford rolled through the West. Then you have BYU. That's my third. So that's my first podium spot. It's BYU. Then we'll go into Stanford. It's my number 2 spot. So Stanford really rolled through regionals, really looked great. I almost thought about picking them to upset and be the national champions, but I see them definitely top 3, and I see them maybe making some noise, maybe challenging Arkansas, but I still think that Arkansas will be my number 1 team. I don't see them losing. They had a really easy regional. They haven't had to turn on the gas yet, which could be a point against them, because you think about when you aren't used to racing at that top pressure, that like maybe you can't turn on at the right moment. So going into the men's side, obviously you have your surprises. I would love to see what's going to happen with Tulsa, but I still think that the top 5 is kind of where it's been all year. You had these upsets, but when it comes to like the tippy top of NCAAs, it's pretty much been the same since August. Number 5, I have Iowa State. Number 4, I have Stanford, again, men's and women's. Number 3, I have BYU. Number 2, Colorado. And number 1, Northern Arizona. Now, again, I was very tempted to pick Colorado over Northern Arizona because I think that they always show up for nationals. However, you can't touch Northern Arizona right now, and the way they've been for the past few years, I just don't see Colorado knocking them off. I think they'll challenge. I think it'll be a fun race to watch, and it'll be a reason to pay attention on Saturday if you want to pay that Flow Track subscription. It's going to be an interesting race. Again, I think it's going to be fairly straightforward because it's been like that all year, but it's definitely something to pay attention to. After this weekend, the race on Saturday, so I'll come out with kind of my recap, my thoughts, who surprised me, who I expected to race, how they were going to expect, and from there, as far as channel news, what you can look out for after this video, I'll be posting kind of video of the podcast tomorrow, and we'll kind of see from there. We'll see what happens. We'll see if it keeps being an exciting end of the season so far. I was expecting a quiet offseason. It has not been a quiet offseason in any sense of the word. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below who your top 5 are. What your top 5 prediction is for Saturday for NCAAs. And we'll see who gets it right. We'll see if you win or if I win. Have a little competition. Like this video if you want to see more like it. Subscribe and follow me on Twitter if you want to shout me out for how dumb my takes are. In the meantime, happy running, guys. We'll talk soon.